Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday to me. It's not actually my birthday, but it's kinda close enough. Oh my god, I need alcohol in my body. Hello, guys, gals, and non-binary pals and metalheads of the internet, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Metal Meltdown, a brand new, very special episode of the Metal Meltdown. Every year for my birthday, I do something a little different. I've talked about my favorite bands, I've talked about my least favorite bands, my most hated metal albums. You know what we've never talked about? You know what we've never actually talked about? We've never done a video about the worst metal cover songs, which is weird because my hatred of cover songs is extremely well documented. Extremely. I hate cover songs. I think most, if not all of them, are terrible. Like, they're terrible. You wanna know why? Because every fucking metal band, especially metal bands are very guilty of this. We'll just look at like an old fucking Aerosmith song or something from the Beatles or whatever, and they'll just go, oh, what if we add some screaming vocals and some heavy riffs? That's fucking lame. That's fucking stupid. That sucks. Fuck you. What is the point if you're not doing something new or different or better? I don't get it. If you're just playing the same fucking song, what is the goddamn point? Anyways, today, in celebration of yours truly, we are talking about some of the worst metal cover songs of all time. This was genuinely a difficult list to put together because there's so many fucking songs that are so terrible, and I probably forgot about a bunch. There's probably a bunch that I've talked about on this channel that I didn't remember for this video here today. So, I look forward to seeing all of your comments reminding me of all of these awful fucking songs. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get right the fuck into it. Cheers. Oh, God! Why the fuck does my wife love Fireball so much, and why is it like the only thing we have in this apartment right now? Why? Going in order of release, first up we have While My Guitar Gently Weeps, originally from the Beatles, but this version is from Spineshank, included on their debut album Strictly Diesel, released in September 1998. And I bet I know what you're thinking right now. You're going, who the fuck is Spineshank? Who in the gosh dang diddly darn fuck is Spineshank, and why should I care? And right now you're probably thinking to yourself, oh my god, who the fuck is Spineshank? Who the fuck cares? And to that I say, they're nobody, and you don't need to. They were, even at the absolute peak of their popularity, a fucking C-tier nu metal industrial metal band combining the worst elements of Korn and Fear Factory into a hot, jumbled, cringy mess. I mean, maybe at the time this was hot shit, who knows? I mean, this is when nu metal is like pretty much at its most popular point ever, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, this thing has aged as well as a bag of milk in the sun. And this particular song, this particular cover, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, is something so bad where it's like, even if Spineshank were a legitimately big and popular band, this could have and would have and should have completely derailed any and all momentum. What was once a tender, naked, evocative, and genuinely sweet guitar-driven ballad has been massacred and turned into this Frankenstein monstrosity of new industrial alt-metal with a variety of weird, jagged textures and mechanical beats. It's messy, it's ugly, it sounds like something that somebody would have put together as like a dare, like as part of a bet or something like that. Like, it doesn't even feel genuine or real. I really don't know what the fuck Spineshank were thinking with this, and I don't think I want to know either. I'd rather just move on and continue living in a world where, thankfully, this is not a relevant band or contribution to society. Next up, we have Faith, originally from George Michael. This particular version is from Limp Bizkit. It was included on their debut album, $3 Bill Y'all, released in July of 1997, and it was also released as a standalone single in October of 1998. Which maybe means I should have talked about Faith first, and not While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I got it backwards. Fuck it, we're already here. Let's just keep going. Look, y'all had to have known that something from Limp Bizkit was gonna make this list. My hatred of Limp Bizkit is almost as well documented as my hatred of cover songs. But I'm choosing this particular song because I think it does the most to just absolutely shit upon everything that the original song was. Like, the Limp Bizkit cover of Behind Blue Eyes is mostly just kind of bland and boring, whereas this, at first, tries to be a fateful kind of cover song. You know, it's jovial and upbeat and poppy, and then it kind of transitions into like a rap, ska punk kind of song, and then eventually it turns into a full-blown Limp Bizkit song with the turntables and the yelping vocals and those obnoxious fucking beatdowns, and it's a fucking mess. It's a fucking nightmare, and I fucking hate it, and I would love for it to die in a fire, and yeah. It's just fucking weird, man. I don't know why any band, any producer, any musician, songwriter, whatever, would look at like a pretty simple, nice, fun little pop song like Faith and just go like, you know what this needs? This needs a fucking tornado of ugly-ass turntable scratches. This needs Fred Durst yelping and barking at the top of his lungs. Next up, we have Land of Confusion, originally from Genesis. This version is from In Flames, released in 2010 as a bonus track on the deluxe edition re-release of their 2002 album, Reroute to Remain. Look, we all know that In Flames, especially in the post-Clayman world, is a pretty hit-and-miss band. They've done some pretty dumb shit, some questionable shit. But the dumbest and most questionable thing that they've probably done within this time, aside from maybe the Clayman 2020 EP and Siren Charms, is this fucking song. Because, like, legitimately, what the fuck is happening here? I mean, the original song is kind of a great call to action. You know, it's anthemic and triumphant and provocative, and you can hear genuine pain and struggle in Phil Collins' voice, but also determination. And then it also has this really groovy rhythmic structure with a really great riff, and all of that is lost here. Like, the urgency, the atmosphere, the fun, cool vibes. The song is more fast-paced. It just feels like it's racing to the finish, like, all the time. It ditches the most suspenseful and dramatic aspects of the original song as well. It brings in these very loud, very annoying Saint Anger-style snares. Tons of super nasally, poorly mixed vocals all throughout. It's just a total fucking disaster of a song. Next up, apparently and unfortunately, we have Master of Puppets, originally from Metallica. This version is from Van Canto. This was featured on their third full-length album, Tribe of Force, released back in 2010. It's, you know, structurally faithful to the original. It's got a lot of the same riffs and progressions, the same basic hook, the same overall tone, except now it's all a cappella, which means it's, you know, instead of like a guitar, it's some guy going instead of a bass, it's some guy going you know, it's people emulating these sounds with their mouth. And that's, look, I don't have an issue of a cappella itself. I'm sure there are plenty of people who love it. I'm sure there are plenty of great a cappella groups out there. It works, it has its moments, but a cappella thrash metal, I'm sorry, no, you've lost me. This is fucking stupid. It sounds so fucking stupid. It doesn't sound real. It sounds like a joke. Again, it sounds like something that would have been pitched for an episode of Glee. It sounds like something that could have been in like an SNL skit. Like, it's so funny to have like a singer like actually take this seriously, like doing James Hetfield's normal vocal parts, and then in the background just some guy going or whatever the fuck, you know? It's just fucking goofy. It's just fucking goofy. And for the record, Van Canto has a bunch of other cover songs that are also supremely goofy and bad, but this one takes the fucking cake. This one for me is the worst of the bunch. Next up, we have Gangsta's Paradise, originally from Coolio. This version, however, is from Falling in Reversed, and it was released in 2014 as part of the Punk Goes 90s Volume 2 compilation. Remember all those Punk Goes Pop albums and shit like that? They would just get like a bunch of pop punk and metalcore, post-hardcore, deathcore bands to just cover famous pop songs and shit like that. That's what this is from. The album itself came out in April of 2014, and it was released as a standalone single later that year, like literally a month and a half later. It was extremely tempting to include Falling in Reverse's cover of Last Resort instead of this, because with Last Resort, they turned a really edgy but fun, in an ironic way, kind of rap metal, nu metal song from Papa Roach into an extremely bombastic, melodramatic, over-the-top ballad with schmaltzy strings and total orchestral overload. It's literally as if Ronnie Radke heard Disturbed's version of Sound of Silence and went, let's do that, but multiply it by a fucking million. But I'm choosing Gangsta's Paradise instead, because to Ronnie's credit on Last Resort, even if it's an over-the-top vocal performance, it is probably one of his better ones overall. This, however, is one of his worst. Like, there is nothing less tough, less gangsta, if you will allow me to say it like that just this once, than this fucking guy, any white guy really, singing like a gangster rap song and just like in the most whiny, nasally tone possible. Like in the original song, you have an actual gangster kind of reflecting on his life and lamenting and doing some introspection. And it sounds kind of tough simultaneously because of those Stevie Wonder samples and because of the use of those strings and that heavy beat. This, however, sounds exactly like what it is, a white boy cosplaying as a tough gangster, a tough motherfucker. You know, the moment he starts going like, "Hey, my mama thinks that my mind was gone," like, you've lost me. You're done. You're done. And it just keeps going, man, like later on in the song, like, "And my homies is down, don't arouse my anger." And that breakdown especially, even by metalcore standards, is one of the worst, one of the laziest, one of the most basic bitch fucking breakdowns in human goddamn history. Holy fuck. In my opinion, there's almost nothing from the entire Punk Goes Pop, Punk Goes 90s album series that's worthwhile whatsoever, but this is the king of shit mountain, you know? The crown jewel of the worst of the worst. Next up, we have Like a Virgin, originally from Madonna. This version, however, is from Mötley Crüe, and it was released in 2019, included on the Dirt, the motion picture soundtrack. There are almost as many Mötley Crüe songs as there are bad Mötley Crüe cover songs. They've covered a lot of songs, and some of them have been legit hits, like Helter Skelter back in the day was a pretty good song, originally from the Beatles. Smokin' in the Boys' Room, originally from Brownsville Station, that was like actually like a big hit single for them too, not a bad song. But there's also been a lot of shit, like their cover of Anarchy in the UK, originally from the Sex Pistols, taken from the Decade of Decadence compilation, I think it was, and also more recently, a cover of You've Gotta Fight for Your Right to Party, originally from the Beastie Boys. But I'm picking Like a Virgin because not only is it bad, but it's honestly gross and uncomfortable. Like, listening to this ancient, greasy meatball of a man, Vince Neil, talk about being touched for the very first time, talk about his sexual desires is gross! It's gross, it sucks. It just is, objectively, especially when you consider that pretty much everyone in Mötley Crüe has been accused of sexual assault, harassment, and even rape at various points throughout Mötley Crüe's history. So them talking about, like, sexual desires and fantasies just... there's a real grossness and strangeness and fucked upness to that. It tries to retain this kind of upbeat, cutesy kind of quality that the original 80s song kind of had as well. It tries to still sound like an innocent kind of jam, but again, in context of everything, it just feels weird. It just feels gross and wrong. Like, I feel dirty listening to this. This is definitely a scenario where some agent, some producer, some manager, whoever the fuck, should have rushed into the studio and gone, you can't fucking do this. You're a fucking idiot if you do this. That clearly didn't happen, and now the world is worse off for it. I probably shouldn't, but since this is my birthday video, and since I need a little bit of liquid inspiration at this point, because Jesus Christ, these songs are bad. Here we go. Oh, God! God, I feel like I just snorted some kind of, like, cinnamon gummy candy. I hate this. Why did I let Anna buy this? Why did I let you buy this, Mrs. Meltdown? I love you, but what the fuck is wrong with you? All right, we've got a real doozy of a stinker coming up. One of the most obnoxious, annoying, cringeworthy songs ever made from one of the most obnoxious, annoying, cringeworthy albums ever made. It's What Does the Fox Say? Originally from Ylvis or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce that name. This version is from Brian Posehn, featuring Corey Taylor on lead vocals, and it was featured on the infamous Grandpa Metal, released back in February of 2020. But Robert, it's just a joke. It's just a fun little comedy joke metal album. It's just fun. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. That doesn't excuse it for being bad. Oh, it's just a joke. I don't care. Jokes can be bad. Shut up! Do you stand outside a fucking movie theater and people are like, oh man, that sucks? Do you just stand there and go, oh guys, but it would both be funny, just take a chill pill? Shut up! Comedy can be bad. This album is bad, and this song is the worst of the worst. Covering a viral song is pretty much always a bad idea. It doesn't help that this particular viral song was viral 7-8 years before the Brian Posehn version came out, so it's already super hella fucking dated. And it also doesn't help that this particular viral song was super fucking annoying to begin with. Like, the most irritating fucking chorus on a pop song maybe ever. And guess what? It's not made better if you add riffs and scream in my ear. This is what I was talking about earlier. So many metal bands have this idea that to make a great cover song, all you have to do is add some riffs, some more drums, and add some screaming. This is proof that you just can't do that. You just fucking can't. But oh, I'm just supposed to give it a pass because it's from a fun, jokey little comedy album. It's supposed to be fun, guys. No! It's just a joke. Well, the joke sucked. Write a better joke. All right, next up we have Search and Destroy, originally from Iggy Pop and the Stooges. This version is from Ministry. It was taken from the Moral Hygiene album released in October of 2021. Moral Hygiene was not a great album. We already know this. There's no need to discuss that. But maybe it could have been good, and it still would have been completely derailed by Search and Destroy, which, you know, the original song is a kind of like dirty, raw, primal, kind of like proto-punk garage rock song, very in your face, very kind of like lo-fi, like a weird kind of like raw basement kind of mix from David Bowie of all people behind the fucking scenes. It's a nasty, gnarly little fucking song, and Ministry transforms it into a slow, provocative, kind of industrial rock, kind of churner, and it's heavier on mood and atmosphere, and it just completely kills the energy and momentum of the original song. The attitude has been stripped away, and, you know, despite being like a more produced track with more going on, it also just sounds way, way worse. Like, it's messy and cluttered with all these like mechanical industrial beats and synths and guitars, and Al's vocals so poorly mixed. Like, it still to me sounds like the microphone is in one corner of the room and he's in the other, and he's just kind of like grunting and barking in its general direction. My back was starting to hurt, so I moved to the couch. It's official, I really am an old man. Anyways, Search and Destroy. I don't know what the fuck Ministry was thinking with this fucking song, but it's a fucking travesty. It's a nightmare, especially when we get to that chorus, you know? Like, I remember hearing Search and Destroy for the first time as a kid and thinking, like, this is what adolescence sounds like, you know? This is what being a shitty little teenager sounds like. You know, it's a Molotov cocktail of angst and edge and attitude in all the best ways possible. And then you get to the chorus, and it just kind of feels like it's been turned into something that would be used for, like, a shitty trailer for a shitty action movie. Like, literally, this has the sound and the feel of something that could have been in, like, a fucking Zack Snyder movie. This could have been in fucking Sucker Punch, for God's sakes. Next up, we have You Should See Me in a Crown, originally from Billie Eilish. This version, however, is from Otep, the one and only. It was included in last year's The Godslayer album. I think it was released in September, if I'm not mistaken, to be more specific. There were a bunch of different covers on this album, you know, Nirvana, Slipknot, there was also Olivia Rodrigo, Lil Peep. None of them are good. All of them are terrible. This, I think, is the worst of the bunch because it just reeks of edgy, hot topic metal energy. Like, between those distorted, aggravated screams and those, like, overcompressed breakdowns and those really moody, kind of in-this-moment style verses, and all I can think is, like, don't cut yourself on that edge. And I mean, the original song does kind of have an edgy mood to it as well, but I don't know, it works a lot better. Like, Billie Eilish's very quiet, almost kind of, like, powerful, almost seductive tone, I think works really well with the flow of the song. I like its darker synths. You know, it actually makes her sound kind of cool, whereas Otep's version of the song makes her sound like a raging Twitter lib, which is what she is, so yeah, there you go. I guess with that in mind, we gotta give Otep at least some credit. It paints a pretty accurate portrait of who she is and what she's about. And I know what you're thinking, hey, Uncle Melty, Mr. Meltdown, it kind of sounds like we're done. It kind of sounds like we've talked about 10 songs. What is it? That's a pretty good amount of material. Here's the thing, though. There are a couple of albums that need to be highlighted because I wasn't able to pick out a single song from these albums. They're just uniquely terrible, and they need to be mentioned. So, two of these albums are Skeletons and Danzig Sings Ylvis, both of which were released by Danzig. Skeletons is a more typical kind of cover album. There's a bunch of different songs on here from Aerosmith and Black Sabbath and so on and so forth. Danzig Sings Ylvis, however, as its title implies, is a full-on tribute to Elvis Presley. It is Danzig only doing Elvis songs, and doing so in the most drunken, pathetic, mediocre way possible. Like, Danzig Sings Ylvis sounds like middle school prom forgot to book a band, and at the last minute, they got a fucking C-tier Elvis impersonator from a fucking C-tier Las Vegas hotel, and he's drunk, and he's on stage, and he's a little weird, and he's kind of creepy, and halfway through his set, he falls asleep. That's what Danzig Sings Ylvis sounds like. And Skeletons is not better. I mean, marginally so, sure, but also not really. On both albums, Danzig is totally phoning it in. His band doesn't give a fuck. It's poorly mixed, poorly produced, poorly presented. The songs aren't transformed in any important or noticeable way whatsoever. It really does boil down to Danzig doing really awful fucking karaoke on both of these albums, and that's why both albums are included in this video. And yes, I know, it's time, let's do it. Let's talk about the Graveyard Classics album series. For those of you who don't know, first off, I'm so happy for you. Second, Graveyard Classics is a series of albums put together and released by American death metal crew 6 Feet Under, featuring Chris Barnes, formerly of Cannibal Corpse. 6 Feet Under is not a great band. I mean, their first couple of albums are serviceable, I suppose. But I mean, they just get worse and worse and worse as time has gone on. I firmly believe that they are responsible for some of the worst death metal ever fucking made. Records like Torment, Nightmares of the Decomposed, even Killing for Revenge earlier this year. It was a little better, but still not great. And of course, these Graveyard Classics albums as well. Just awful, through and through. Through these albums, he's covering a wide variety of songs from a bunch of classic rock and heavy metal bands. Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, Metallica. The second Graveyard Classics album in particular is basically a tribute album to Back in Black from AC/DC. Like, he performs that entire album all the way through in the style of 6 Feet Under, and it's just as fucking pathetic and embarrassing as it sounds like it is. And speaking of AC/DC, I mean, 6 Feet Under's cover of TNT from the first Graveyard Classics album, I mean, it's a fucking meme. It's legendary at this point, and it's pure, utter awfulness. There have been rumors circulating off and on over the course of the past few years that 6 Feet Under was quietly working on another Graveyard Classics album, specifically focusing on Rush songs. I really hope that that's not the case. I really hope that 6 Feet Under is done with this album series. They're clearly not done with covers, because there was an awful cover of Hair the Dog on the aforementioned Killing for Revenge. But hopefully, at least, Graveyard Classics stays in the graveyard. Hopefully it's done. Hopefully it stays buried 6 feet under. Pun semi-intended. And voila! The worst metal cover songs of all time. We talked about a lot of awful, awful fucking music. Now it's your turn to tell me in the comment section below. Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? Did I get it somewhere in the middle? What am I missing? What other totally terrible, inconceivable, annoying, cringeworthy, obnoxious piles of garbage did I forget to mention? Join us on Discord, press subscribe, other videos, wow, kaboom jams, happy birthday to me because I'm awesome and incredible, and as always, you have yourself a fantastic fucking day.